Well, hey there, welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is Tuesday, which means we've just finished our first ever game of Veggies, a tiny little game about putting all the best fruits and veggies into our market stalls to be the best one at the farmer's market. I'm here with my fellow barristers, Gordon, Elizabeth, and Glenn, and we're about to talk you through our biggest takeaways from the game and what we thought of it. But before we do, let's talk about how the game plays a little. Alright, so Veggies is a game where we're going to be collecting groups of strawberries, bananas, mushrooms, carrots, and grapes. To do this, we're going to have to select cards from the central market, and once we've selected a card, we have to figure out a way to layer it on top of other cards so that we cover up those rats and create the groups the way we want them. At the end of the game, we're going to look at the biggest group everybody has in their market stall, and that means everybody gets to score that type of fruit or veggie. To score one in your stall, you're going to look at the biggest group you've got of that type, and then multiply that number by the total number of groups of that type you've got in your stall. In this stall, the biggest group of mushrooms is a group of 5, and there are 4 groups overall, so this stall would score 20 points for its mushrooms.
So in Veggies, each of your cards has 6 spots on it that can either score points, be no points, or be negative points. When you play them, you can either play it next to an existing card or on top of any part of one of those existing cards. And I really like how I have to think about what am I arranging the cards that are in play and how am I leaving possibilities for me in the future. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I'm loving that. It's an ongoing puzzle that's constantly changing because it's not just what I have in front of me. I have to be paying attention to everyone else because my puzzle is also relying on what pieces are in your puzzle and your puzzle and your puzzle because it all affects me in the end. So I like the fact that I'm constantly having to look around the table and see what everyone's doing. And even though we might not be talking a lot to each other, I'm still having everything you do has an effect on me.
I would love it if someone did mushrooms.
Is somebody really not on mushrooms yet?
I really want someone to be on mushrooms.
Thankfully, I've avoided the mushrooms. Man, if you switch gears into mushrooms at the bitter end, that's going to be awesome and terrible for me, but should I get some mushrooms? I think the scoring in this game is really cool in that it makes me think totally differently about this game than I expect to when I walk into it. It feels like you're trying to build large sets of the vegetables you decided to collect, right? But we all found that at a certain point in the game, you started to have to decide, oh, I've got my large group of carrots already. Now it's time to start making smaller groups of carrots because I'm going to score multiples off of the other smaller groups I've got about. So that made you think really carefully about when was the right time to pick a big 3-carrot card, but also provided a lot of value in the cards that were maybe one each of 3 different types, because you could totally make use of this card that looks like it would be really hard to fit into your puzzle. I'll just make that 3 different little groups and then I'm great.
I was really surprised on the central market cards how frequently I was able to watch the central market and still get the card that I wanted. Usually in a game where you have 4 players and 3 choices in a common area, usually my expectation is that card that comes up, well, I'm never going to get that by the time it's my turn again. But I was surprised in this game. There was a lot of flexibility in planning ahead in my turn.
I mean, just the placement of the cards. The fact that I have so many options of what to do with this card because I can rotate it any way I want. I can cover up parts of cards however I want as long as I'm covering up full sections. I can't cover up like, you don't get a half thing of grapes, but you have to leave yourself open for future possibilities as well. It's not just what you're doing right now. What are you doing next turn and the 3rd turn and the 4th turn and the 5th turn?
Well, we played with 4 players, and that got really interesting immediately. We discovered that every game we knew we were going to be able to score probably at least 3 and probably 4 of the 5 different veggie types each time. Well, and even in our 4-player game, there was a moment where Glenn and Gordon both suffered because they'd collected a good deal of carrots, and nobody topped out on carrots, so nobody got to score carrots, which can get pretty rough. In a 2- or 3-player game, that's going to be all the more obvious. You're really going to need to watch what the other players are collecting a bunch of, and watch to see where they might sway into bigger groups of something else, because you really want to make sure you get to score off of what they're going to collect. Hey, and by the way, we always say that we're a local game store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is true. We have brick and mortar locations in Milwaukee, but we also ship nationwide. So if the game's looking cool to you and you wanted to pick up a copy from us, that would be amazing. But if you can't from us, we hope you get it from your friendly local game store or somewhere else awesome. All right, back to the game.
So we played 2 games with 4 people, and it was about 20 minutes each game. And I can definitely see that if you play with fewer people, it's going to go probably even a little faster, or even with 4, once you know what you're doing, you'll play a little bit faster, and that's great.
It's really for anybody who wants a game that could either fill in between other games or that you could play a few times in a row to fill out an hour of time, but it's not one that's going to be like a laughing party game where you're like cracking up with each other the entire time. So it's one where you definitely want to have to do some thinking, but want to be able to do that in a really short time frame.
Someone else who this is great for is families who are working on arithmetic skills, because you are doing a lot of multiplication in this, and you could take pauses during the game to calculate the scores as you're going, and of course the final game scoring. So if you want a little gamified reinforcement on doing some math, this is a great game for families.
Alrighty, well that about does it for our takeaways of Veggies this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you hit that subscribe button, that means you're going to get to see all of our Tuesday videos when we post them every single week. If you've got a comment, leave a comment. We love chatting with our viewers. And if you hit the like button, that means the YouTube algorithm's going to show this video to more people, so we really appreciate that. That is all we got for this week, and we'll see you next time.